Our top focus on WION FINEPRINT. US President Donald Trump has seemingly hardened his stance on the Iran deal. On the sidelines of the G7 summit in France, Trump said that US is not investing any money in Iran.
We are not investing any money in Iran, by the way. That rumor got out there yesterday. It was ridiculous. We have the right to go in someday and do, if I want to do something or somebody wants to do something, but we are not investing any money. We have no obligation to invest any money in Iran.
After talks with the Emir of Qatar, the US president added that the main focus of the deal was that Iran would not acquire a nuclear weapon and that all hell would rain down on the country if it did. Now, US and Iranian officials are due in Switzerland on Friday to begin detailed negotiations, opening a 60-day window for complex technical talks. These are expected to cover issues such as the future of Iran's highly enriched uranium and even the lifting of sanctions. Now, earlier, Iran's Mehr News Agency reported that US will release $12 billion in frozen Iranian assets ahead of the start of negotiations under the deal. Citing a 14-point memorandum of understanding between the two countries, Mehr News said the remaining $24 billion in blocked assets, they would be unfrozen over the 60-day negotiation period that begins after the MOU is signed. Meanwhile, Iran said that ending the war in Lebanon is an integral and inseparable part of a broader memorandum of understanding reached with the United States to end the conflict.
This is perhaps the most important issue in the memorandum, the declaration of an immediate and permanent end to the war on all fronts, including in Lebanon.
Now, Lebanon was pulled into the war in early March when Hezbollah launched rockets at Israel after the killing of Iran's supreme leader, prompting Israeli strikes and a ground invasion. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said his country's forces will remain in Lebanon, Syria and Gaza as long as necessary. But with that uncertain negotiation and the terms of agreement still not finalized, which soon to be finalized on Friday according to Islamabad, the terms between US, Iran, Lebanon and Iran still remains uncertain. Alongside the war in West Asia, the G7 summit is also gathering several leaders from across the globe who will be shaping the decisions that will shape the future of the globe in the next few years and eventually transform the conflicts that are ongoing at the moment. Well, as of now, Iran has said that talks with the United States on its nuclear program and sanctions relief will likely begin later this week. Now, let me welcome my guest, Ambassador John Bolton. He is the former Assistant to the President for National Security Affairs and former United States Ambassador to the United Nations. He joins us live from Washington, D.C. Ambassador Bolton, welcome to the broadcast. It's a pleasure having you here. Thank you for making time.
Well, thanks for having me. Glad to be with you.
Ambassador, Trump says Iran now has rational leadership, that current leaders are not radicalized. Do you agree, or do you think the White House is just talking itself into a deal?
Well, I think it's definitely talking itself into a deal. I think the consensus across the board is that the people who are in charge in Iran today, being by and large people subordinate to those who have died in various airstrikes, are perhaps even more radical than the people who were in charge before. There are some in the civilian government who remain the same, but the fact is the country is being run by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. In fact, you could make a very convincing argument that the country's been run by the Revolutionary Guard for the last 10 to 15 years, with the Ayatollahs simply providing religious and ideological cover. So let's be clear, this regime is just as much a threat to the Middle East and to international security generally as the regime that ceased to exist during the strikes.
Ambassador, now that you mentioned the Revolutionary Guard, they still remain very powerful. Do you think Iran has conceded anything meaningful yet?
Well, they haven't conceded anything. The airstrikes did do significant damage to its military-industrial complex, the nuclear, ballistic missile, and drone programs. They suffered a lot of damage in that respect. But I think the best way to understand this deal, which nobody outside the negotiators has yet seen on paper, is that it's simply a description of where the next negotiations go. There's so much disagreement between the public statements from the regime in Iran and from Trump that until we actually see the document, there's really no way to understand what it contains. But the very fact there's such disagreement, I think, shows very well this is just a piece of paper that may or may not accomplish the opening of the Persian Gulf, which has benefits for Iran so that it can sell oil, and benefits for Trump so that hopefully the international price of petroleum falls and therefore the price of gasoline for U.S. consumers falls. That may be the only thing they're actually agreeing on.
Indeed, Ambassador, as you rightly said, that we don't know what the documents are covering at the moment. And as you've previously said, the devil is in the details. You've repeatedly asserted that Iran's regime is the principal threat and must be removed. The regime is still standing. Why did Washington end up where it said it would never go?
Well, I don't think Trump fully understood from the outset of this what his objectives were. I mean, I can tell you what my personal view is of what the policy should have been. It's removal of this regime. I don't think there's any chance for lasting peace and stability in the Middle East until this Iranian regime is replaced. I don't think that's what Trump had in mind. He certainly didn't accomplish it. And in fact, settling on the terms that he appears to be about to do, I think will simply provide revenue for the regime that will help it entrench itself in power even more, to go back to its nuclear weapons program, back to funding its terrorist proxies around the region, back to repressing the people of Iran.
Ambassador, there's a huge event. The G7 event is occurring, the summit. On the sidelines, Trump called Lebanon the minor war. Given Hezbollah's role in Iran's regional strategy, given its presence in the peace deal as one of the primary contentious points, and even given the death toll, which according to latest official data has even exceeded Iran's, isn't that an underestimation of the problem? Do you also think that Lebanon is a minor war?
Well, it's certainly not a minor war to Lebanon, Israel, or Syria, the countries directly involved. Hezbollah has long been the A-team of terrorism. It's the most powerful of all the proxies that Iran set up in the Middle East or around the world. It's been severely decimated by the Israeli strikes. And every attack that reduces Hezbollah's threat is a negative for Iran. So I think Trump is reflecting that he just doesn't understand what the balance of power in the Middle East looks like, and doesn't appreciate the grave reality of the Hezbollah threat, certainly to Israel, but to the people of Lebanon as well.
Now that we mention Israel, President Trump says he's unhappy with Israel's actions in Lebanon, but Prime Minister Netanyahu says Israeli troops will stay in southern Lebanon no matter what. Could this public divergence derail this entire process, the entire effort to ensure peace would be maintained in West Asia?
Well, I think that there's, of course, a pattern in U.S.-Israeli relationships where often there are conflicts between the leaders of the two countries. Trump is concerned about one thing here. He's trying to push this deal that's been announced over the finish line. As I said, he wants the global price of oil down, and I don't think he cares about anything else. It's a typical Trump operation. He's focused on one single thing that's right in front of his face, and he's ignoring the secondary consequences of that approach.
You've served with the Trump administration before, Ambassador Bolton. Based on that experience, is this, in your view, a rushed, a desperate decision by President Trump? What do you think has changed over these years?
Well, I think in terms of this particular agreement, of course, it's taken a long time even to get to this point. But Trump was so visibly eager to have a deal. He wants to get out of this war. He's tired of it. He's bored with it. And he's worried about its effect on his popularity ratings. He knows that one thing that Americans across the board understand is when they fill up their gas tank at their car every week and they see the price has gone way up since the war started, he wants that price to come down. All other considerations are secondary.
Ambassador Bolton, recently you even said a bad Iran deal could spark a nuclear arms race. Do you think other West Asian countries, Arab nations, they will eventually enter the battlefield and sharpen their nuclear arsenal? And what will be the consequences for the entire world?
Well, this is the way proliferation works. When it looks like one country is engaged in a pursuit to acquire nuclear weapons, other countries who may feel threatened in the region look for protection. And in the case of the Middle East, countries that feel themselves protected by the U.S., whether Turkey is a member of NATO, the Gulf Arabs because of our close relations with them, some of them are deemed major non-NATO allies, countries like Israel, countries like Egypt, close to the United States, if they don't feel they can count on the American deterrent, whether it's the extended nuclear deterrent or conventional deterrent, they're going to look out after their own interest, and that could well lead them down a path to trying to get nuclear weapons. And each one that moves down the path encourages the other one. As I say, this is what proliferation thrives on when people don't see a credible deterrent around the world. And it's been the U.S. extended nuclear deterrent that has provided stability for much of the post-1945 period. And Trump's actions, many actions, not just this decision that has been reached with Iran, undercut the credibility of the deterrent. And that can only lead, in my view, to an increased risk of nuclear proliferation.
Of course, Ambassador Bolton, as we wrap up and we talk about Trump's actions, also understanding that proliferation is on a rise, do you think at this moment, looking at the dynamics of this entire war, Iran is at the stronger position out of this confrontation?
Well, I don't think it's stronger because of the damage that was done by the bombing and by the fact that it made an effort to seize control of the Strait of Hormuz, and de facto, since the strait is largely closed, has demonstrated it could do that and not bear any consequences, not really being the subject of military force to open the strait, which I think would have been the right course of action. So I'm very much afraid that on that issue, the issue of the Gulf and the strait, that the regime may have concluded it can now open or close the strait like turning a light switch on and off, which is a very bad outcome.
Thank you, Ambassador Bolton, for making time for us and sharing your insights on the evolving situation. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks again for having me.